past a certain past a certain threshold of money, I just assume all these guys are pedophiles. If I'm being fucking honest, I feel like I want to know the number where a rich guy converts to a pedophile. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because it's like
it just seems like
they're like, what else can we experience?
Yes, yeah.
Hi, my name is Duncan, and I believe that if you are going to have an internet job telling other people to be accountable for their actions, you should be ready, if not willing, to be held accountable to your own. I also believe that adults should stay away from minors. We're talking about Cody Ko. Cody is a figurehead of the YouTube commentary space who advocated for reasonable behavior and critical thinking, who was then accused of sleeping with Tana, another creator, at a time when she was underage and he wasn't. Despite his audience asking for a statement or defense, Cody has been absolutely silent about this entire issue and seems to be planning a return once the story has died down. So these are the elements that we're dealing with, and it's complicated, obviously, there's a lot of nuance, but it's worth zooming out and looking at this basically for what it is. What's the headline here? And pulled back, the headline of this story is Cody slept with someone while she was underage and he wasn't. And again, obviously, there's more to this, but I don't want to present this story as if this is the big reveal we're building to. I'm not going to introduce people, give you backstories, and then be like, guess what? Blank, drama. Like, to me, that shouldn't be the part that we build up anticipation for. And of course, we'll flesh out the details and the backstory behind this, but I want you to remember that this is the point we're circling around. Now, in terms of background information, I'm not going to tell you a whole narrative about who these people are, but it's important that if you're unaware, you have to know every element that's being at play here because it's complicated, it's nuanced, and it's very stupid. The lightning round backstory is that Cody was a comedian on Vine and gained a huge audience based on his frat bro type comedy. When he then moved to YouTube and started social commentary, his old viewers helped boost him into gaining millions more, with his commentary styled off of his original type of comedy. If you're a veteran Me watcher, then you might remember 2 years ago when we already talked about Cody in terms of being responsible for your platform. And wouldn't you know it, here we are again. Cody's presence on YouTube is significant. Not only is his channel among the top 5 highly regarded commentary channels on YouTube, he also diversifies his portfolio with a podcast. He established himself in the music industry as part of a rap duo. He made secondary commentary channels and a vlog channel and a workout channel. He even co-created an official studio to help manage all of these different avenues and more from others. Outside of YouTube, he's a husband. He's a father. He's a DJ. The point is, this guy is very talented at having a lot of different avenues be successful. There's no questioning how his mind is in terms of business success. He would use his type of comedy to make fun of these people who were being mean or selfish. He talked about people who were abusing their platform or their money. He also associated himself with the other top commentary figures of the genre who all do similar perspectives. And I think that part is cool. Like, that's good. There are worse ways to use your platform. So if you didn't know Cody, you have a good sense of what his public image is. And if you did know him, you know the relevant parts that go into this story. This is someone who has been doing this for a decade plus. A lot of people trusted him and looked up to him, which I hate that that's foreshadowing. Sorry for the interruption. My new son is snoring. This is when we get to Tana, and a lot of people already have an image of who Tana is in their mind because she is, in a word, controversial. Tana exceeded in the storytime era of YouTube, where the crazier the story, the better. She graduates from outlandish to scandalous by hanging out with circles involving Jake Paul and Shane Dawson. She's constantly caught in telling lies, and she even had an entire convention scam. To this day, if you say the word TanaCon to anyone who is on YouTube in 2018, they'll lose 5 years of their life. Tana was known for not having a very well-liked reputation, and it's likely that was part of her business plan, but Even if you build a platform off of provoking other people, it doesn't change the fact that when something really bad happens to you, people can just ignore it. Over multiple years, there is a fringe rumor floating around Cody Ko's community that he might have slept with Tana Mongeau back when they had filmed a collaboration video on his channel. That timeline would insinuate that Cody was around 25 at the time and Tana was around 17. The original source behind this rumor was Tana herself, and the only reason I ever refer to it as a rumor is because she never seemed to want to pursue any kind of action or response from Cody.
That's not right, that's not correct. I know now. I was 17 at that time, 18. You're calling me all these names and treating me really horribly, using me for money, trying to psychotically abuse me and force me into hooking up with others. Shout out to JC Kalen. Shout out to Cody Ko.
She only ever seemed to want to say that much, and she didn't want the claim to go any further than that. The reason behind this rumor's lifespan and why it persisted for so long is because Cody never even acknowledged it. People reasonably presumed that this meant he didn't want to give the claim any legs to stand on, that he wasn't going to acknowledge anything so crazy. And you might still be thinking, yeah, that's a very serious accusation, and if you don't want to call attention to it, why bring it up in front of your entire audience? And I do agree that argument checks out. Almost. It makes sense to me that a creator of any size wouldn't want to hear this claim from a subsection of their audience and then risk bringing it to everyone's attention by addressing it. For lesser rumors or fake claims, that makes sense to me. But I think any accusation this serious deserves to be addressed as such. And also, Cody's entire platform was built off of condemning this exact type of behavior from others. Condemning this type of behavior is like a regular workday for him, so why wouldn't he do it? But beyond the things that people noticed and Tana's limited version of the story, there wasn't anywhere for this to go. There wasn't any progress, so it remained a rumor for a very long time until now.
Who's the smallest you've ever had sex with?
Oh my God, no one look at me, Cody Ko. I can say that. I was literally 17. I can say that.
It also just wasn't one time. I hooked up with Cody Ko so many times across the years that it's if I have to the thing is I don't have the old phone. I want to go find my old phone or old whatever, to gather more.
Man.
How old was I on April 28th, 2015?
So you were what? Shut up.
Brother.
Brother.
And I was just such a fan. That's the sad part.
Following Tana's new approach to this story, it caused a much bigger stir in Cody's audience, with the reaction of his audience digging into it to see if it's valid. You see that with most claims that creators will get. Again, this is almost beat for the story that we're all very familiar with by now in this genre. And on that note, naturally, there were some people who immediately denied this on Cody's behalf and were defending him based on no evidence, which happens to any creator's audience, but that doesn't make it excusable or okay. Tana is not regarded as trustworthy by this audience, and she lies for attention a lot. She's not my favorite person in the world. But all of that should not come into play when it comes to accusations of this magnitude. When anyone comes forward with the kind of account of being treated this way, it needs to at least be heard out and treated with respect. Even if it's from someone you don't like, even if that person is a known rage baiter, you hear him out. People in this position should be supported, believed, and at the very least, listened to. I stand by that. And it's something that Cody likely would stand by too before this. So to see people immediately block out the chance that Tana could be telling the truth was a little disappointing. But I will say, a lot of Cody's audience did not react this way, which was actually very promising to see. So if not anything else, we at least have that one promising note to take away from this. Now we get back to the shit. With the increase of interest, the people doing their deep dives unearthed some newfound clips from other public figures telling anecdotes on their respective podcasts that seemed to corroborate specific details of Tana's story.
Oh, dude, wait, that reminds me of the most unnatural duo I've ever seen.
What?
Cody Ko and Tana Mongeau.
Dude! I remember watching that video for the first time and being like, are they even friends?
Yeah, I remember watching that and I was like, I don't understand this right now.
Yeah. So uncomfortable. So uncomfortable.
One time, I told a guy, I saw him making out with a girl at a party who was underage, and I pulled him aside and I was like, hey man, you probably don't know, I know she like looks a little older, she's underage, watch it. And he's like, oh my God, thank you for telling me. And then he turned out.
Not only this, but people found an even lesser known theory that Cody once had a girlfriend in high school when he was in his 20s. Suddenly, this was no longer a string of rumors. It was starting to look more like a case. Supplied with this new evidence, this took off past the community scandal and into the mainstream conversation. Articles were being written, other creators were making videos on the topic, and a lot of people were determined to hear from Cody about it. At this point, I hope we would all agree that the topic is no longer ignorable at this point. It's not some small rumor or claim that you can like turn the other cheek to and let it fizzle out. No, this was serious enough to warrant any kind of acknowledgement. So, how does Cody finally respond to this?
1, 2, 3, 4.
I guess this isn't so much an acknowledgement as it is just the next thing he did since the accusations. And I have heard that he played the song Sorry, but I'm going to go ahead and say that doesn't count. So a lot of people interpreted this action as basically an admission of guilt. If you're in this situation and you're just quiet until your next public appearance at a DJ set at Vegas, doesn't look good. This just doubled down that Cody had time and plenty of opportunities to make any kind of statement and deliberately chose not to. But that wasn't the only response / official reaction, because comments on Cody's Instagram and subreddits regarding this were being taken down immediately, as if moderators were looking for them. Seeing that shut down, people reached out to his girlfriend or other public figures who had worked with him to get any sort of information, but they were shutting things down too. And I hate to break the momentum in the narrative or whatever here, but in terms of a response, this is all we've gotten from Cody. I am recording this in October, and there is still no kind of acknowledgement or apology or any sort of comment from Cody on this situation, which blows my mind. I wouldn't be shocked if most other creators responded to something that way by slinking away and never acknowledging it. But Cody? Cody doing it is something else. It means something else. If someone is maintaining the vow of silence approach to something, it means they either have a very good reason for not doing it, or they are choosing to avoid it. So, it begs the question, why hasn't Cody said anything? Cody is not saying anything because he has a visa that could be jeopardized by admitting to this. Also, I bet he doesn't want to, but that's the big reason. This theory of protecting his visa was assumed by people and then confirmed by Tana on her podcast.
It's very interesting. Like, I've had people on Cody's team reach out to me, right? And like, that's from like the other side, or allegedly the other camp. And I had people from Cody's side reach out to me and tell me he's not going to speak on this at all. And this is just what I was told by someone else, so maybe it's not the truth, but I think it adds up.
I mean, he hasn't yet.
He's not going to speak on this at all. He needs a visa.
I can see the logic in not wanting to admit to something that could put your whole life at the risk of changing. I would also argue that while that could be considered a valid complaint, he also slept with a minor, and we shouldn't look past that. I think it's scary to think about the possibility of having your entire life uprooted and kicked out of an entire country. But I also think that people who sleep with minors probably deserve a little discomfort. Portions of Cody's previous audience and supporters said, well, if he's building a legal case around this, it makes sense why he can't say anything about it. And I agree with that to a point. But baby, we are way past that point. Yes, anything that Cody says could be used against him, but if someone is addressing the allegations or acknowledging that a topic is being discussed, it doesn't legally condemn you. Cody had an opportunity to address the fact that this was a topic, and still he didn't. It's a gray area, but we all know that you can talk about an accusation without incriminating yourself by just using specific wording. And again, that comes down to a personal choice. But when you have the career that Cody had, I think there is an ethical element to it. Because again, not to zoom out too far, but this is about Cody, but it's also about more than Cody. There are thousands of entertainers who have this career of covering stories and putting a spin on it, but overall advocating for effective and critical thinking. And if they're willing to just lie about it and get away with things behind their audience's back, that needs to be addressed. We don't know how many people are capable of doing that. Like I said, when Cody went silent, people were looking towards his circles to make any sort of comment on this and were met with more silence. His wife hasn't said anything, and his co-host / creative business partner has made a very corporate-sounding statement. That statement, which was addressing the studio, said that the podcast would continue without Cody, and it addressed oncoming changes while referring to Cody as going through a personal issue of his and not wanting to share the heat. Aww. And people have tried theorizing on, if they knew or not, but at some point, it doesn't matter. What matters is what they do now, and we can see what they've chosen to do. Understandably, people went to the next best thing, which was talking to all of the creators who have collaborated with Cody or have previously stood with him. And you might see people going with this to his colleagues and coworkers and saying, well, what would Cody's colleagues have to say on this? Why is their perspective needed? Just because you work with someone doesn't mean you're accountable for what they do. To which I would respond to you that you have just opened up a nasty can of worms. This leads to the, at this point, immortal discourse that when a YouTuber messes up, the other YouTubers in similar circles should address it. Like there's an obligation. There are extreme arguments on both sides. Some people saying that all creators should be willing to speak on something if they are asked, going against the approach of it's unreasonable to ask everyone to have a statement on everything, and you can't force someone to give an opinion on something. If you ask me, and you did, I heard it, I don't think all of these creators need to say something. I do believe, however, that any creator who has worked with Cody or has a video on their channel collaborating with him should have said at least some kind of accessible statement about this yesterday. Obviously, from the audience side of things, we don't have any proof that these people were seriously friends with Cody. What we do have is proof of their brands being associated together. So if you ask people about them, your content is within the topic's context. I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but people who use their platforms to advocate for ethical treatment of others should be held to those standards. I just think it's the reasonable and right thing to do to practice what you preach, because otherwise they're just getting away with brand preservation. We should be judged by our own standards, not commentary channels, but really everyone. Cody might be staying quiet to preserve his visa. Cody might be silent because of stage fright. What matters is that from this point on, whatever he does will be very intentional. I don't think we should expect some grand 2-hour video essay that provides all this new evidence and absolves him of everything. But I think we need to address that whatever type of comeback he would make would be, in a word, calculated. Whatever Cody is, he's not stupid. He knows that his controversy will be overshadowed by whatever attention-demanding story happens almost the next day, the next hour even. Our media cycle is relentless, Calling it a 24-hour news day at this point is generous. Since all of this went down, if you bring it up, a lot of people will say, well, yeah, but that already happened. There's no point in still talking about it. There are bigger things going on we should address. And fuck that. That's not valuing accountability. Let's not go around comparing evils, because we're not kids. We can think about more than two things at once. Through no fault of our own, we have been given a lot more to think about than Cody since this happened. But don't let that affect how you approach it. I would have told you that I believe wholeheartedly Cody is planning some sort of comeback before he actually did try and do that. The first sign of life that we saw from Cody months after his Vegas appearance was a story from his exercise Instagram. Apparently, he had a really good workout that day, and we had to know about it. And you can read into that whatever you want, but it really does feel like he's testing the waters to see if he can come back in any type of way. Kind of like, have you guys forgiven me yet? Or more realistically, y'all forgot? We can look at the complexity of the situation and acknowledge that Cody might not deserve to be redeemed, but either way, he wants to come back, which leaves us with one thing left. What do we do from here? Cody was constantly making content over a variety of channels for over a decade. A lot of people idolized him and grew up seeing him as this figure to model themselves after. It makes sense that a lot of people feel very connected to his work. And whether you were a fan of Cody's or not, if you're at this point in the video, you deserve some sort of takeaway from this story. Why else listen to me talk about it? We're on the receiving end to everything that this was, and if there is some sort of benefit we can take from it, we deserve it. I think the most important thing we can do in response to this story is remember it. Not just because other things will happen in the timeline that Cody will then use to buffer a comeback. Who cares? Cody's behavior here is not exclusive to Cody. He made a bad choice, but everyday people can make bad choices. And if you come into contact with any sort of situation resembling this, it's important that you know what to do. And if you can learn from these stories to help that, you should. If thinking back to this story is what helps you learn to see these warning signs and stay conscious of your situation, then maybe Cody's impact is still worth something after all. Stay conscious of the power imbalances in your everyday life for yourself and when looking out for others. These may be influencers, but they're also people, and what happened to Tana shouldn't happen to anyone. I'm thankful that it seems, at least, that Tana is now being unaffected by this. She's okay about it enough to be blunt about it, and hopefully that's a sign that she's no longer disturbed by this. And whatever was happening with the high school girl, I wish everyone involved in this peace and recovery. By Cody withholding his accountability, whether it be visa-related or not, he has set a terrible example. He's set a disgustingly low precedent for not just other commentary people, not just YouTubers, but anyone who is capable of behaving this way. And maybe that's overthinking things, but when it comes to something this serious, I would rather you overthink than underthink. But in terms of the Cody lens you can apply to this, we're done. Who cares what happens? It's on his conscience now with whatever he believes in. If he's gonna try and retain an audience from his workouts, that's on him, as long as we all remember why. What matters, as always, is that you and I are able to recognize this sort of pattern going forward, and that we can be more conscious because of it. Not only to avoid becoming victim to it, but also to avoid accidentally supporting it. But really, the takeaway with the most action you can take is just hold commentary creators accountable for what they say. If you have to them with like something that contradicts what they're saying, do it. Anyone in a position like this should be able to handle that kind of criticism. If you bring it to them with a readiness to engage, they will likely meet you with it. It's easy to move forward and ignore the past, so don't. Bye.